All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Rant and Pray. I'm your host, Maureen Hamblin, and I am joined by the wonderful, wonderful Dr. Kia Fisher. Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, and happy Black History Month. Today is the last day of
Yes.
Black History, but happy Black History Month. We have a different Black History Month here in the UK and Ireland. Ours is actually in October.
Oh,
Yeah, it's so random. But because I lived in America, I try and mark it somehow. So
okay. That's interesting.
I know. So tell us a bit about yourself, Dr. Kia.
Well, I am a clinical therapist. I work with women of color and families and couples. I've been doing it for almost 11 years now,
Yeah.
10 solid, almost 11. And I also do life coaching as well. My focus is to help people through their trauma,
Yeah.
and then the symptoms of trauma. So whether it be depression, anxiety, PTSD, what have you, those are the things that I help, women with. And then, just helping them to create a life that they love and they want after being healed.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing. And what got you into that? Had
Well, I went through my own trauma when I was younger,
Yeah.
and 11 and 18, and it took some time for me to heal from that. And I believe, they always say, and that's the name of my next book, pain pushes power, and because of the fact that I went through these experiences and pain and anger, frustration, what have you, and I made it to the other side by the grace of God, it's now my opportunity to give back and help others with their own testimony, with their voice, and being able to share their story, their truth. So that's what got me into it, my own pain and struggle and the passion that I had to help others.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so amazing because today I was talking to a friend who is American, but white American living in Northern Ireland. And we meet every week, every other week for a walk. And she was saying that she was asking me, have I found a therapist? Because my last therapist, I just didn't feel like they got me. So I was telling her, no, not yet. And then she was like, well, I have another friend, a Black friend in America, who is struggling to find a therapist that gets her. And then it got me thinking, this is why we need more Black therapists. Not that there's anything wrong with a white therapist, but sometimes they don't get your struggle. They don't get when you say, you know, when you mention microaggressions or stuff that you've been through, they just look at you like,
Yeah, it's so true. And that's one of the things why I decided to focus solely on people of color, women of color, because there's not many of us out here, helping and understanding where we come from, and it's very important to have that, because like you said, there's certain things that we go through as Black people that our Caucasian brothers and sisters won't know, and so therefore it's important to line yourself up with the right type of therapist.
Yeah, I completely agree from experience, and that's amazing. And oh, so exciting. So when we talk about trauma, what is trauma? Maybe we should start from there, because I didn't know that I was traumatized until
Really?
literally like 2 years ago. That's when I was like, oh wait. So let's start by defining trauma and then take it from there.
Well, trauma could be, you see, a lot of people think when people hear trauma, they think just sexual trauma, right? It's way more than that. Trauma could mean grief, PTSD from the grief. It can be financial difficulties. It could be any experiences that you've had that has altered your way of living, way of thinking, feeling, emotions. That's what trauma is, So when people say, oh, I've been through trauma, I tend to say, what type of trauma? Because instead of automatically thinking sexual trauma, domestic violence, or childhood trauma, because there's so many others, Yeah.
And it's true because I feel like, yeah, most of the time we think it has to be sexual or,
Yeah.
I don't know, loss of a parent or,
Yeah.
things like that. So we have a lot of people, especially in our community. I'm Kenyan. I was
Hmm.
born in Kenya and then spent most of my life in Ireland. And um, I see now that I'm aware and I've been doing my own work, I see some people and I've talked to some, relatives and cousins and whatever to be like, that's something you could look into.
Uh-huh.
And they're just like, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. Because for something to be wrong, you have to have
It
been.
has to be dramatic or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
feel like emotional trauma and the subtle manipulations that can come from some relationships are actually more damaging in the long run.
Way more damaging and harder to deal with,
Yeah,
harder to identify,
yeah,
because sometimes we feel it's the norm for us, especially in our culture, traditions and things of that nature makes you feel like this is nothing,
mhm,
but really, truly it is. For example, if someone says to a child, you're going to be just like your father, and your father is known to be something negative, a negative connotation,
yeah,
that child will grow up
yeah,
thinking, I'm this like my father, and will act on it.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Because you've already poured that into that child.
yeah,
It's traumatic for that child because now I have to now unlearn what you told me that
yeah,
I am.
yeah,
And that alone can take time.
yeah,
And that's emotional. You can't forget
yeah,
emotional. You can get slapped,
yeah,
you get a bruise, and it heals. But
yeah,
emotionally,
yeah,
it's with you. I tell people my trauma, I had physical sexual assault,
mhm,
but the residue
yeah,
was the emotional trauma.
yeah,
And I could never forget that,
yeah, yeah,
So definitely we don't talk enough about
yeah.
that,
And
you
it's
know.
funny that for a long time I would hear, that proverb or saying, where people say sticks and stones, you know, and
Yeah.
words. But
Yes.
I, my the most painful things I've experienced have been words,
Yes.
um, spoken or unspoken, wanting
Yes.
to be told that I'm loved and not being told that I'm loved.
So true. Yes.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so do you find that with a lot of Black people, so they're coming with kind of personal trauma, from families, from their childhood, but are they also coming with the trauma of society? Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, do you find that
Yes.
a lot, or do you find that a lot of your patients are not aware that they have both, that they're carrying both?
It's a mixture. So, some people, because of their generational cycles,
Yeah,
as a professional, I see it as a cycle.
yeah,
If some people want to call it a curse, I hate saying the word curse because
yeah,
I believe that it's a connotation that means it can never be.
yeah.
It's infinite. Where a cycle means you can break that; it doesn't have to continue.
I like.
So, when they come to me, some clients come to me, and their generational cycle may be poverty,
Yeah,
you know, and with poverty comes stress and all these things. And because they live in a neighborhood that may not give them things that they need that would be in another neighborhood, all those things are coming down on them, and how
yeah,
to fix it. They don't know how to go about maneuvering, how to come up out of poverty
yeah,
because of the racial, what is that word I'm looking for? Basically, things that come against them
yeah.
racially that they cannot help,
Mhm.
and then you have stigmas, and then you have people who I don't want to say don't know any better, but they've never learned how to save money, make money a certain way, what have you. So
Yeah,
all those things are coming down on them, and then they think that's their life.
yeah,
That's what's supposed to happen.
yeah,
This is who we are,
yeah,
and it's not. And it's
yeah,
very difficult to, again,
yeah,
unlearn the traditional ways of doing things, and helping them, to encouraging them to change that lifestyle. It
Yeah.
takes a lot, especially if you see grandma do it, grandpa do it,
Yeah.
auntie, uncles, what have you do it, and now it's your turn. You feel like
Yeah.
this is what, this is what we do. So I see that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I know that's one of the reasons why I made it my business to focus on people of color.
Yeah.
More particularly women, but
Yeah.
people of color on a whole, especially when I do families, because of the cultural stigmas that we have.
Yeah.
You know.
And I find that once you start dealing with one trauma, so if you deal with your childhood and whatever, then you start to see.
Yeah.
So it's taken me 30 years, but last year, it really hit me that I was traumatized by all the racial stuff that I went through.
Yeah.
In my teenage years in Dublin. Um, and it's because I had been doing the personal work of, looking at my childhood and whatever, but I
Yeah.
internalized a lot of not being good enough,
Mm-hmm.
because of the things that people said to me, but because my parents did not know how to deal with it. You just
Yeah.
had to get on with it. You just put your head down, you
Yes.
study, this is why we came to this country, and
Yes.
study hard, work hard. Nobody really dealt with what was happening.
And that's what that's like a lot in our culture.
Yeah.
The same thing can apply to sexual assaults and rape, where no one talks about it. Just
Yeah.
deal with it. We put it under like it never happens.
Yeah.
But it still damages internally the person who has gone through it.
Yeah.
So you have this where it's self-confidence, self-esteem, and putting a patch on it saying, you need to be strong, get done, this is what we got to do, forget all of that. But how the mind works, you'll never forget.
Yeah.
You'll never forget. So how do you
stuck.
cope with that is most important.
Mm-hmm.
How do you redirect those thoughts and redirect your life so you don't have to deal with that? Or if you have it in your face, how to cope with it, how to address it and respond instead of being silent.
Yeah.
So that's the things that I see a lot in our culture.
Yeah.
Put a Band-Aid on it, we're strong.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we are strong people because we are resilient, but at the same time, we have consequences of those resiliencies, which is, internal. No one can't see it because it's internal, and those are the things that damage us the most.
Yeah, and we pass those on then.
Most definitely.
To every generation. And
without thinking about it.
Yeah, without even knowing. And then the family structure is really messed up.
Yes.
As well, I know white people have their own issues with their families, and there's divorce and whatever, but there are more absent fathers sometimes in our cultures than in the white families, and I think it's been passed on, from colonialism to slavery to
very much so.
Yeah, and then it's been passed on, and we think that this is the way it should be.
This is who we are. This is what we do. And the thing about it, it's either that or we stay with something that hurts us, destroys us. We're not together. You hurt me, we argue, but we're not getting divorced. We're not separating, but I'm going to endure the pain. So we get either one of those, unless you were able to fight that cycle. And, there's a lot of things that I had to fight in my family. I came from a single parent home. My husband came from a 2-parent home. And there was just certain things that I didn't know because I didn't come from a single parent. I didn't come from a 2-parent home. So I had to rearrange and unlearn a lot of things, and then learn on my own certain things. Like I never learned how to take care of a husband. I never learned, interactions and how to do teamwork with a spouse because my mom did everything on her own. So I was very independent. My money, my job, my this, don't tell me what to do, my bank account. And we had to fight the good fight in regards to making it about us and not what we were taught or grew up with, So it, even that's the spouse part. But even with my mom coming from Jamaica, she never knew how to say I love you. She never showed she wasn't a nurturer. She was a provider.
Yeah.
So her way of showing I love you was you got food on the table, you're able to go to school, clothes, whatever, what have you.
Yeah.
I had to learn to tell my kids I love them.
Yeah.
And I had to pour that in. I mean, now they're like, okay, Mom, we know, because I wanted.
You're like, you don't know what this means.
I wanted to change the narrative, and I wanted them to be able to say it too.
Yeah.
And they'll say, I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. Randomly. Maybe we're sitting, someone's like, man, I love you, Mom. Yeah. I wanted that to be the norm.
Yeah. And I've been obsessed with that as well. Literally, like, like smothering them. I kiss them too much. I kiss them too much. Because I'm just like, I never got this. And sometimes I'm even jealous. I'm jealous that I'm your mom, you know?
Yeah, I didn't get this.
Just like, you know, because that's all I wanted to hear for so long. But parents, you know, I guess in your context as well, but African parents just provided, you had a roof over your head, you could go to school, and you had food, and
that was it.
That was love. That was
that was it. That was my love to you. Yeah. And I get that, but you know, it does a lot to us, because even in my adult life, and before I got kids, you know, before I had my kids, attention was a very big thing for me, because I never got it when I was younger. Girl. So that, again, you know, you're not healed, you're not getting that attention, you're trying to grab from it everywhere you can, and you end up getting the wrong attention, the wrong connections, the wrong friends, the wrong this and that, because you want to feel loved, you wanted to do this and that. So everything has a ripple effect. And I think that's why I am so serious and passionate about healing. And when I start with a client, when it comes to healing, whether it's therapy, life coaching, I always start with the rooted issue of why this is happening. Because every effect is there's a cause, you know, every cause there's an effect. So the behavior is because of something happened, something rooted. And I always go back to confront that, because that has to heal, so everything else can fall into line, into place, you know.
And I totally agree. And I think that's why it can appear as if Black women are loose. Do you know what I mean? And I know white girls do it too, but you know,
but we're more scrutinized for it.
We're more scrutinized, and it just appears that way. And I've had, you know, looking back, I've been doing a lot of, like, you know, looking back, and I remember breaking down one night with my husband and just saying all I wanted was to be loved. You know, any attention I sought, any you know, so even in church, in my church, my old church in Dublin, you know, I wanted to sing, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, and it was all just so that I can get accepted and loved. And yet I was more like a pain in people's behind than anything else.
Because you couldn't see it, because you were thirsting for it. And I know what that feels like too, because although I wasn't thirsting for the attention body-wise, I was thirsting for company, friendships. And I would do anything, even though I knew there were friendships that were not real, just to hold on to something. And I would give 110. Even though they're given 5%
or 0,
you know? Or 0.
There, you know, you date someone and you're trying to make it work. You know, and they're not. Like, now I look back, I'm like, they really did not try.
But you know, the thing about it is, we go through these experiences, and every experience is attached to who we are, and it makes us who we are. And when I talk to clients, I say, when they finally realize certain things, they say, oh my gosh, I wish I didn't have to wait all this time to figure this out and that out. But I believe God allows us to go through certain things in order to fortify us in certain areas in our lives. I don't believe he causes pain, but he allows the pain for our good. So me going through trauma or what have you wasn't caused by God. It was the evil in certain people that they were being used. But God used that pain to, one, build me and then help others. So, you know, even though I'm like, dag, I'm 43. 38 is when I actually was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm healed.
I'm
You know
healed.
what I'm saying? You know,
Man,
even
I
though I
still
was,
have
yeah, I've
2
been
more
in
years.
therapy for 10 years, but I'm actually healed, like happy, like I'm picking right friends. I'm doing the things that, and although it took me so long, and I can say finally, I know that this was a process.
Yeah.
For it to be real, it had to be a process.
Yeah.
And that process doesn't come with a time limit.
Yeah.
So when you said, when I look back on the exes or whatever, what have you, every experience you had something to do with the lesson that had to be learned to build you.
Yeah.
So that's what I truly feel. And that's what I bring to my clients when I speak to them too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Like, it's just, so what does it feel like to be healed? Let's stay there for a little bit.
Happy. And the thing, peace.
Yeah.
Peace. My favorite word is bliss. And why I say bliss, you will never, I hate the word never because it's so concrete, but life is not always, it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But even when it's not going well, you're still happy.
Yeah.
Why? Because when you're healed, nothing outside of you is in control of your happiness.
Yeah.
So while I might be going through, oh gosh, I got to pay my bills, or somebody talking about me or whatever, I can still smile and be like, yeah. I'm still upset. I'm still hurt. I'm still stressed. But it's easier for me because it doesn't dictate me or who I am internally, So healing for me also is being able to pray for the people that hurt me. Yeah. Being able to say hi and bye to the people without having any type of animosity, Being healed is basically not allowing anyone to have power over you and your spirit and what you respond to. Good or bad. It's all about God and a God giving you the ability to have power over that. When you are not healed, it's totally opposite. You're all over the place. But when you are healed, you're concrete and confident in your power. So that's where I'm at.
And do you feel like healing is like cyclical rather than linear? Do you know, like, where you might feel like, I've got this, and then tomorrow something triggers you on that thing. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I know what you say. I know what you mean, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Even when you're triggered, it doesn't stop you from knowing your power.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? True healing, everybody say I'm healed and I'm vibrating high and I'm this and I'm that. Authentic healing is nothing shakes me. Yeah. Even when stuff don't go right, it does not alter me.
Yeah. And so what I don't know. So what does that, for example, if you get triggered and then you cry about that thing, does that mean that you've been shaken? Or is that okay?
Because there's power in vulnerability.
Okay.
In our culture, we'll learn that we're taught that vulnerability is weakness. Yeah. And it's not, it's strength. So if somebody passes away, if something doesn't go right, cry, but you don't stay in it.
Okay.
That's a coping skill.
The being healed is not staying there. It's
not staying there.
But it's acknowledging, yes, this triggers.
Yes.
This.
Yes.
But
because you want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
The power is in acknowledging it, but not allowing it to, saturate your spirit to the point where you're miscombobulated.
Yeah.
If I am hurt, somebody betrayed me, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to harp on it to alter my spirit.
Okay, well that makes sense.
You get what I'm saying?
Because last night I got triggered about something and I thought I was over it, right? Because I was, I'm in a really good place. and I just needed an hour or two to just kind of cry, listen to
Yes.
Christian songs, and just, but a good cry.
Yeah,
And
but
today I was
that's
much
coping
better. I don't
skills.
think I thought about it today. So
That's coping skills.
yeah,
That's
okay.
coping.
I was just
Some
like,
people,
okay,
yeah.
what
Some
does it
people
mean?
journal. Some people go to the gym. Some
Yeah,
people do certain things. Here's the thing. If it's already in your mind,
yeah,
meaning whether it's in the back of your mind because it has happened to you, so it's always going to be in your memory bank.
yeah,
There are certain things that's going to trigger you. For instance, when I see certain things, like there's certain shows I don't watch because I get mad when it comes to sexual assault, like Law and Order SVU. I
yeah,
really don't like watching it, you
yeah,
know? But if there's something on the news that came up or something's going on regarding some sexual assault or something, or I see something on social media,
yeah,
it gets me upset. I'm
yeah,
triggered.
yeah,
But what do you do with that trigger
yeah,
is what you'll know whether you're healed or not.
yeah.
You know, are you going to go back, depressed, anxiety, what have you? Or
Mhm.
or do you know, okay, this is the time I need at least 5 days off of social media because I don't want to see this.
Yeah,
I need to back off of this a little bit. I need to do some more meditations and telling myself, calm down.
yeah,
It is what it is. You
yeah,
found out. Hopefully the person is going to be healed during this, whatever do you have to say? But
yeah,
it's a coping skill,
yeah.
so you did good.
Yay. Just wanted to know. Yeah, and it's just
Yeah.
sometimes I think sometimes we think that healing is like almost kind of getting to this superhero, supernatural stage where you never really feel
No.
anything anymore, you know,
Healing is being able to feel it, but placing it where it needs to go.
where it needs to be. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and then I was gonna ask, how does trauma manifest itself? Just in case somebody's watching this and they're like, you know, am I traumatized? You know, how would you see, like with your clients when they come in, what are some of their symptoms or some of the things that they would say they're struggling with, but it's rooted in like a childhood trauma?
Well, if it's a childhood trauma and it's rooted and they're
Oh,
saying, I
any
think,
trauma.
it's manifesting, it looks like it's manifesting. Overthinking
Yeah,
is one where you continue to try and think about what happened, but you're obsessed with it.
yeah,
So all day you're thinking about the same thing. Bodily responses could be anxiety,
hmm,
panic attacks.
yeah,
Um, it could be anger for no reason. So there's no anger ish. There's no reason to be angry, but you find the littlest thing to be upset about.
yeah,
I mentioned one time on social media, sometimes it's not the cap off the toothpaste.
yeah,
Sometimes there's something within you that you're pissed about, but don't know how to express it.
yeah,
Manifesting some deep ones, whether it's with maybe kids that have some trauma issues or even adults, can be acting out.
hmm,
Acting out can be the ready to charge when you're angry, when you're not usually that way.
yeah,
The uneasiness around people, social anxiety. Um, it can be overly sexual, depending on what, it could be sexual trauma, and now you're overly sexual. That's how you deal, and it manifests itself again.
yeah,
Constantly thinking negative about yourself.
yeah,
Um, you know, um, so there's so many different depression, and it's more short term than long term, but it's manifesting, so it can lead
yeah,
to long term. And relationships,
yeah,
certain arguments, tedious things happening in there that
yeah,
wasn't happening before, and all of a sudden you're mad at everything. Certain things are happening, or it could be someone who dating the same type of people and getting the same results,
yeah,
and not noticing that it has something to do with whatever happened back
hmm,
in your childhood that never was healed. So you attract the same trauma, or you
yeah,
attract the same thing. So there's different ways that you can um, figure out if the trauma is manifesting.
yeah,
When clients come to me, I like to do inner child work when it
yeah,
comes to childhood trauma,
yeah,
so they can remember certain things so they can confront it and heal it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the inner child, because I did not know about the inner child till like 2 years ago, and I
I
know I was
love it.
living in my own little bubble. And I think maybe there are people who don't know about the inner child, and
Mhm.
then maybe you can go on to talk about the work that needs to be done to that child if they've gone through trauma. But who is an inner child?
So the inner child is basically work concerning um, your childhood traumas, and you revisit whatever age you are and heal that moment, heal that time. It takes sometimes several types of exercises to get there, but it's basically your adult self protecting the younger you. You know, kind of like I saw a photograph of an older self person hugging their child. I think it was another one I saw with Mary J. Blige, where she was kissing her inner child, you know, on the cheek. You know, so it's basically healing that part of you when you were younger. And different exercises, like I do one that is very emotional, but it cracks the layers, and that is basically the Gestalt theory, where you place that moment, maybe a picture or something that helps you to remember of that time, and then you start to scream, shout, yell, talk about what you remembered, everything that you remembered, and you're just saying, you did this to me, you did that to me, da 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 da, and you just fully come out, and you don't touch the client during that time because you want that client to get everything out. And after that, you know, there's a series of different exercises where I may tell them affirmations that you need to say to your inner child. Tell her you're sorry or what have you, or tell her you forgive her, or you're going to protect her, or you should have done this and you didn't do that, or it's not her fault. So it's a lot of different exercises to make sure that inner child gets healed.
And it's almost as if you're parenting that child, you know.
Correct.
So you're meeting a need.
Reparenting.
Yeah, reparenting, and you're meeting a need that wasn't met, you know, back then. And it's really, really powerful. A lot of my inner child work I've done by following people on YouTube and stuff like that. And I keep a picture of little me. I don't know how old I was, but on my screensaver, I don't know if you can see it there.
Aww, like that hat, girl.
Yeah, because I had dissociated a lot from like a lot of my memories, and then they started coming back, and then I didn't know how to deal with it. So actually, like, you know, reparenting me, you know, at that age has really helped me in healing. I still have a lot of work to do, but it's
a process. It doesn't happen in one day. Like I said to my clients, this is not a 1-day thing. This is not a 2-day thing. It could take months for you to, depending on, or years, depending on the amount of trauma that you had to deal with, you know? And so you don't rush that, because it's also emotional, because I've had people who have in their subconscious mind didn't remember certain things that happened during that time, but during the exercise, it all comes back. So, you know, there is a lot of emotional, that's what I say, it's like the valley work. Before you get to the palace, it's the pit. You know what I'm saying? So but I really truly, if I was to choose any type of modality for trauma, that would be it.
Definitely, because I think I took a class in the seminary, and the very first day of class, Dr. Sedlacek, so he's a white man married to a Black African-American woman, and they're just such a powerful team. But he has a real heart for Black people and Black young people, both men and women. And my husband and I went to him for counseling for a bit, and it was just really powerful. But in the first day of class, he prayed, and it was such a simple prayer, and he said, God, I pray for all the little boys and girls stuck in adult bodies and don't know how to. And literally, I opened my eyes, because that was like almost the first time I had ever heard of that. And I looked around, and everybody, men, women, Black, white, Asian, were crying. And it was almost as if like you had a whole class of traumatized people.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past it. I would say that's probably true.
Because a lot of people who go into helping professions,
most of us are like
that. Most of us have had issues. And I couldn't believe it. And I was just like, little boys and girls in adult bodies. And that's what it is. And you see adults acting out. And it never used to make sense. And now when I see it, I'm like, okay, it makes
Yeah.
sense
Yeah.
that, I'm acting out sometimes, or,
Hmm.
these adults in my life are acting out as well. But there's a lot of healing to be done, and
Yeah.
inner reflection to be done, especially in Black culture, where you're not really allowed to feel, or
Hmm. Hmm.
to, or to deal with stuff, where,
Yes.
you don't talk about emotions too much, and you
Yeah. Don't cry.
don't cry.
Hmm.
Even when someone dies, people
Yeah.
think it's okay to say,
I'm
don't
just
cry.
don't cry, or like I'm gonna be like this.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna cry. I'm good. I'm gonna
yeah,
get through it. I gotta be tough. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just, expectation to be strong,
Mm-hmm.
just all the time. And then in our cultures, in some African cultures, people sing and dance at funerals, so
Mm-hmm.
the idea that where you're celebrating this life. But a part of me is like, but I want to mourn that life,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's a young person that's gone. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to just dance and sing. I want
Yeah.
to be miserable for a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It is a forced uh what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost as if it's forced society's way on us,
Yeah.
rather than we saying this is how we're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's more so the norm to follow society's way of dealing with different things than to say, my spirit says this is what it needs,
Yeah.
you know? And we have to change that. We have to change the way how we view healing,
Yeah.
and we have to change the way how we view removing things that we had to learn or what was programming us, and actually put what my spirit needs,
Yeah.
and I think we'll be way better off,
Yeah.
even types of people, types of individuals,
Yeah.
walking around with adult bodies
Yeah.
and our child inside.
Yeah.
Because when we have a positive child inside, it's because
Yeah.
we decided it's our responsibility to heal. It's
Yeah.
our responsibility to do what is necessary for that inner child
Yeah.
to be reparented, instead of society tells me I got to deal with it.
Yeah.
Society tells me, don't worry about that. It's the past, move forward.
Yeah.
And sometimes we got to revisit,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so that's just it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's so true. And I think that's where sometimes individualism and
Mm-hmm.
in white society works in their
Mm-hmm.
favor. And
Yeah.
because I've met a lot, and a lot of my white friends who are able to cut away from family if they feel like somebody's
If they
toxic
feel the
or
need to.
whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
that rarely happens in Black communities and Black family, because blood is thicker than water.
Then
And
water, yeah.
so even,
Not me anymore, honey.
right? Listen, even the
Not me
couple that
anymore.
raped you,
If
even the
I
cousin,
feel you are toxic, you gotta go.
you're gone. I agree. I've been going through that as well the last
It's
2 years.
hard. It's hard.
Yeah,
But here's the thing: you don't have to hate the person.
yeah,
But what you can do is say boundaries.
yeah,
If we go to a family gathering and you are there, I can say hi and bye to you. I can limit my conversation with you. Doesn't mean we have beef, but I know that your spirit does not align with mine.
yeah,
And so we can't be in a conversation that is deeper than this,
yeah,
or I'll call you and text you on Christmas, or if you're in a group text, I say, hey, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, whatever to everybody.
yeah,
And that's as far as I will go with you, because it's not beef or it's not anger or frustration between you. It is spiritual alignment.
yeah,
And if it's something that's toxic and God is saying that is not
yeah,
what I need you to be with, or around, then there's a way to have boundaries, still love your family, but
yeah,
you have boundaries. Yeah.
yeah,
And I had to learn that,
yeah.
because
And
I'm a
how,
fixer, I'm a this, I'm a that, but there's certain things that God is trying to, sift out and deal with, and you trying to fix things,
right,
you get all caught up in the crossfire,
yeah, right. And you spend months picking yourself up.
Yeah,
Um,
and I just learned that when God, I flow with God. So if I get that discernment that says boundaries,
yeah,
don't ask no more questions, relax, release it, what have you, That's what I do. I don't try to go and fix it anymore.
Yeah.
If you come to me as a client, all day we're working like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to my personal life and my family or what have you,
yeah.
friends, I'm not going to do anything past what God has already given me purpose to do or aligned me to do. So yeah.
So you said it's difficult to do that, to get to that point where you know, I guess you go no contact, or you
boundaries,
kind of gray walling, or just having boundaries, you know, strict boundaries. So what advice would you give to someone who's considering, you know, or has been feeling they need to get to that point? Like, where could they start?
Well, for me, I had to really think about my peace of mind and my health.
Yeah.
That's where I started.
Yeah.
I was tired of overthinking scenarios with family members.
Yeah.
I was tired of the drama, back and forth texting, and, you know, people saying this and that. I was just tired of it. And I found myself not even doing as much work because I was so busy dealing with this.
Yeah.
And so, in all honesty, and I said this in another podcast, when you start to love yourself, when you start to believe in your self-worth, and you start to make sure that whatever nourishes you stays and whatever doesn't goes, you release it. And when you have that mindset, it won't be that hard for you to say, I'm done. So what I would say to anyone is reflect inwardly. What brings you peace? Why are you not worthy of that peace? And when you start to see that you are worthy of peace, what in your life, family, what have you, friends, that don't offer you that peace? And that's where you start with the boundaries.
It's almost as if you're Marie Kondoing your life, you know.
Yes.
This things bring me joy, but it has to come from a place of self-love, doesn't it? You know,
has to come from that. Yes.
That I am lovable, I am worthy, and
I'm worthy of it being reciprocated.
Yes.
And if it's not reciprocated, then I need to let go. You know, and I'm an empath, so I get, you know, maybe some of your viewers, those listening, I'm an empath, I'm a fixer. But what brings me peace? That's the whole point. That's where you start. And in knowing what brings you peace, you'll know what needs to have boundaries. And I believe that's God discernment, trying to teach you when to say enough is enough. You know? So anytime I go against that, something wrong happens. And I don't like when something wrong could happen. So I'm always going to stay with God's discernment. You know?
So I've been accused of, you know, kind of putting up walls when I'm setting boundaries. Could you help us maybe understand, you know, the difference between walls and boundaries?
Well, walls are not necessarily healthy.
Walls
are not healthy.
So you're trying to set a boundary and people are saying, well, you're putting up walls, and you're like, actually,
well, you got to be careful of that because everybody's definition is different. Right. So walls mean I'm no longer talking to you. I don't trust you. You're on mute. You know, that's not necessarily healthy because that person still has power over you because you have gotten the wall up to the point where they change who you are. Right. But like I said, just like with family members, it can happen with friends, it can happen with anyone. Boundaries is healthier because I give you a limit. You can't pass go. You can't pass right here. And I'm in charge of what you can pass and not, you know. So when people say you put a wall up, some people is because of the fact that you gave them boundaries and they just call it walls. You know, because you're no longer the same way that you were with them. So it's not necessarily a wall, depending on what it is. It's not really necessary. It's really your boundaries, and they're not used to your boundaries. You know, there's some people that I had to put in the boundary section and say, you know what, and the dynamics changed. I never made a conversation to say, I'm going to put you in the boundaries thing, so they don't know. So when you change the dynamic, they're like, oh, so you don't call me as often as you did, or so that's the wall that they're saying, because you're not doing the same things that you used You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a wall. It's
Yeah.
just their way of seeing it
It's
that
their
way.
opinion. And I
Mhm.
I do find that manipulative people and toxic people generally, uh, if you set any sort of boundary,
Yes,
they're
they don't
coming.
like it. Yeah, they don't like it.
Yeah.
And that's when you know they're not for you,
Yeah.
because they should at least respect that,
Yeah.
and that is the key for knowing your power, because then when you set boundaries and they don't know how to respect it,
Yeah.
that's when I would totally cut off,
Yeah.
because that means this person doesn't care about you. It's
Yeah.
all about them. And so they're going to come at you in any way from, because they demand you to treat them the way that they want to be treated.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that to them, but they are doing it to you. It's time to cut. That's when you lose a number, block, all that good stuff, because they're disrespecting your wishes, or you're disrespecting what now you see as, okay, you need to be about it for my mental health. You need to be in the boundaries area, but they don't want that. So now it's time to cut you off.
And
Yeah.
is it normal when you've cut someone off or you've set boundaries to miss them?
Oh yeah, because you're human.
Yeah.
You're like, just like trauma or anything else, you're going to remember the good times. I have two people that I totally cut off. And now and again, I was like, oh, we used to do this. Oh, we used to do this. But I'm so secure in myself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put myself there again. But I will tell you this, because I feel like even in one of those scenarios, God is allowing it to come back together again. But I feel like it needed to have boundaries so that person could heal.
Yeah.
Because where I was in my life, she couldn't connect to me because she was already in her healing process, and she couldn't see nothing. And maybe God gave us that time because it never ended on beef. It was just me pulling away and giving boundaries. But what I see is that we're now going to a gig together. I haven't spoken to her in a year and change. We're going to do a gig together. I didn't know she was going to be there until yesterday. She probably knows that I'm going to be there. I'm not backing away from it. She's going to be in my space. But maybe God allowed that, because all this time we never had a gig together. And now all of a sudden, and that's how I see God. Like, okay, God, I see you now. I see that you're trying to say, okay, it's time now. It may not be like it was before, but now at least her healed self can now be involved in my space with my healed self. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, now we're coming close to the end, and I wanted to talk about just briefly Black men and mental health, because I know in general men never talk about mental health, so regardless of race. So is there something that you want to say? I can't even think of a question, but maybe how can a man know he's depressed or anxious? Are their symptoms different? Is it
my heart is there. Everybody always say, why don't you see men too? My heart is there, but my passion is for women. I do believe that we need more mental health Black males to help our Black males, right? Because the truth of the matter is, even in the clients that I've seen, I had to refer to a friend of mine who's a life coach, because there's certain areas in a man's life that I can't relate to, right? Whereas a Black man can relate to them. So I funnel my male clients that come to me, maybe through their wives, maybe as a relationship, and then now they want to see their own therapist, and I'll send them to my life coach friend who's a Black male, who I believe is good. But mental health with men, I believe it comes from, again, the stigma of I'm a man, and I can tell no man my problem, nobody my problems, I'm going to handle it, what have you. But they get the same symptoms: depression, acting out, anger, sexually, PTSD, all of those things, they still get the same symptoms. What I would do in regards to, if you have like your listeners may have a father, a brother, a husband that may need what have you, there are online support. And you can choose someone online that is an African American or what have you, a male, and they have people that can talk to them that way. The other thing that I would say is Black pastors. If there's not enough Black mental health, Black pastors can help Black men, at least for the time being, until it gets to the clinical part. But at least the stress, the symptoms of depression, like a life coach, they can talk to them.
Yeah.
Some Black pastors have the mental health component in their degrees, in their ministry too, ministry degrees. So, you know, I would definitely encourage that, you know, to our Black males. My husband went through his father passing away, and although I am a therapist, I'm too close, you know. So he went to I think he froze. I think he froze over there. Yeah, he went online, and he called, I guess it's during COVID, they had this number out where you can call, pick your therapist, pay a certain amount of money. I think it's $100 and something a month for a therapist online. And you could choose whether you want a male type of a race or what have you. And he did well with that, you know. And some men like to do that because they talk to people on the phone. You're not seeing them. It's not face to face. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay. And is there anything you'd like to leave with us today before you go?
I just want everyone to, two things. One, self-love is important. You know, we are taught that self-love, you know, if you love yourself, you're all about yourself, you're conceited, or, you know, you think too high of yourself, but you're yourself. And I think the more that we feel ourselves, the more that we you know, look inside ourselves and build ourselves, the better person we can become for others. That's one. Two, mental health. Get the help you need. The stigma is bipolar, schizophrenic, all these other psychoses who go and see therapists and counselors and psychiatrists. No, people who have grief, stress, divorcees, what have you, they also see counselors and so forth. And it's necessary, because at the end of the day, these experiences do hit our lives very hard. And many of us cannot come out of it or become worse if we try to do it on our own. It takes nothing to speak to a stranger. You're not speaking to a friend, you're speaking to a professional, where you can lay everything out and there's no judgment. Take it and use it to your best advantage.
So love yourself and get help.
Yes, mental health. Yes.
And I totally agree. And loving myself has changed how I see my husband, how I love my kids, how I see everyone, even the people that drive me crazy. I'm able to be like, you know, some people I've cut off completely, and other people, you know, but even in cutting them off, I'm able to see they're dealing with their trauma. Stuff.
You have more empathy for them. True.
So, thank you so much. This was so
no problem. It was.
And it was just so informative. And I usually end in prayer. So I'm just going to say a prayer. And I just want to thank you so much for Dr. Kia. I thank you for all the Black therapists out there who have gone against what they were told. You know, Black people don't need therapy. Black people don't need to talk about their feelings or whatever. And they've realized and seen through your power and through your I guess, conviction that this is needed. And I pray, God, that you will raise up more men and women of color who will help fight this pandemic to some extent of centuries and centuries of not talking about our feelings, not talking about what's happening in our minds. And God, I just pray that you will break all these cycles, Lord, and that you will raise up men and women who love themselves as a result of being filled with love from above and being able to pass that love on to a dying world, to a world that seems hopeless, especially in the midst of this pandemic. So God, thank you again for Dr. Kia. I pray a blessing over her life, and I just thank you, and I pray that you will just keep using her more and more.
Thank you, God.
In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.